Okay, did we ever think of an intro to this?
No, we haven't.
Like, we don't have our tagline.
Mm-mm.
No, welcome to the Theology and Show, a show talking theology and the various ways that it applies to our lives. I'm your host, McKay, a.k.a. DJ McKay, a.k.a. AK, the plant-based theologian.
Whoa. That's a lot of
that
titles.
Was that a lot? Yeah. I got to rep the titles hard. And I'm joined by the one and only Bishop Fredo Ramos.
Bishop, I like Bishop. I can rock with Bishop.
Yeah, we're kind of moving you away from the pastoral part and just making you a bishop.
Bishop, Reverend. So,
Fredo, how are you today?
I'm all right, man. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, recently had the wisdom teeth removed. How's that recovery process going?
I'm foolish and in pain. That's it.
Yeah. I was.
At least I'm not swollen, you know.
That is.
I'm thick enough. Lord knows I don't need to have a thicker face.
I was hosting the other day with Pastor Matt, and he was like, "Where's Fredo at?" And I was like, he had all of his wisdom removed, and so we had a good, probably 5-minute conversation about whether or not you'd still be able to teach here at Sandals because you had your wisdom teeth pulled out.
I love it.
To which then he said, "Don't suck," right before I recorded hosting. I was like, "Thanks for the encouragement, Pastor. I appreciate it."
Oh, were you recording down in the studio?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you cover me.
Yeah. Well, you didn't set us up with anybody.
We'll have to edit that out later.
The whole studio team was like, "Hey, who's doing hosting today? Is Fredo going to be here?"
Yeah, I was.
We were like
slacking with Giselle like crap, man. I was like the one last loose end.
So today's topic of conversation: summer is rapidly approaching. It's right around the corner. I can hear the barbecues and the swimming pools calling my name.
Yeah.
And the question that I had for you is, if you had all the money in the world, no limit on your budget, to go on any kind of vacation.
No limit.
Where would you go? What would you be doing? What does that vacation look like for you?
Oh, man. No limit on the budget feels pretty exciting. I'd probably go to, I think I'm going to Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any specific part, or are you just going to travel
Lake
the whole
Como,
country?
Because of Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I need to go to the site where Anakin and Padme were secretly married.
Yeah. You have to say the famous line.
Yeah.
I hate sand.
I hate sand. No, but I also want to have a good amount of Italian pizza and food, and a little red wine here and there. You know? I'd probably go there. So, but then I would want to see all the sites. So I don't know how restful it would be.
Right.
So.
That's this. Where
are you going?
I would go Spain for sure. Like Spain is still very
choice.
high
My
up there.
top 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, I want to see like all the tourist spots: Madrid, Barcelona. But I was told a really great spot to go. It was like more, I think, northeast. There's like a mountain range that kind of separates Spain from France. That is like a pretty cool spot to go to.
Okay.
I haven't done tons of research yet because the more I start researching these vacations, the more I'll get upset and bitter that I don't have the finances to do that in my life right now.
Of course.
But I can guarantee my trip to Spain would be very busy because I would just be going from the next spot. But of course, the Spanish also have their little siestas in the day, so maybe it'd force me to slow down and embrace that.
Relax.
But I asked that because summertime is a time when a lot of people start taking vacations, start thinking about time off and resting. And you and I had a pretty interesting conversation about the idea of rest and what that means for us. So
I just had a second one. Shoot. I really want to go here now. Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Puerto Rico.
You're going to go out there
Boricua.
I feel like I would have to go to Puerto Rico with Jason, though.
Yeah.
Like he's just going to fit in automatically.
You got to go with someone with Puerto Rican descent.
Yeah.
Like a real little coquille who can take us around, and we'll be set. We'll be good.
Puerto Rico would be high up there.
That feels restful. That's why I think about that more than like Italy. But yeah. Restful.
Yeah, I think naturally any kind of beach or island life lends to the restful aspect.
Right.
Because at a certain point, there's only so much you can see around there, and you just got to sit down and relax.
Sip a little coconut.
But then I also, as we kind of like think about this idea of rest, I have a 1-year-old, so my time of rest is usually about an hour and a half after my son goes to sleep, and then I fall asleep. And because I do not wake up well to my alarm, I don't have time to prep for the day. So I wake up and I dive right into helping take care of Zion, getting the day going and all that stuff. Yeah. So rest for me right now is a little more sparse. What is rest like for you as your kids are getting older and you're starting to embrace bigger family vacations and like seasons of longer periods of break, I guess.
Yeah, it's amazing how hard it is to fight for a day to intentionally go slower and like do something that's not in your regular work rhythm of doing, you know, that also like uplifts and nourishes your soul. So, so that day is generally like Saturday, like Friday night to some Saturday period of time. So where we try to break away from stuff. But even I got growing kids, so like we'll have soccer games, you know, so or some other kind of outing, you know. But usually there's some kind of like we have some kind of entry point into our time of Sabbath, which is like a Friday night kind of school's done, work is done, let's hang out and have a good time. So it feels different as a way of saying like we're entering into a different part of the week for us now, you know. So, but yeah. As of late, it's looked like me not judging how well I'm resting, but just giving myself to the practice of it, realizing that Sabbath or rest, you know, however you want to maybe phrase it.
Right.
But Sabbath, as it's described in Scripture, the way we see Jesus practice, is a gift, right? And so it's meant for us to just receive it freely, enjoy it for what it is, and not treat it with like kind of a legalistic, or look at it with like a legalistic lens, you know?
Yeah.
And just try to enjoy it. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. I love that you mentioned Sabbath specifically. I know it's kind of a Christianese word. A lot of people might not actually know what it means. But I think Sabbath is a holy approach to maybe a self-care day, a mental health day, this idea of taking time to rest and take a step back from the things that are going on in our days. So let's kind of jump into there. What is Sabbath? I was in community group with you for a long time, so I've had the privilege of kind of seeing a front row seat to how your family does Sabbath. But explain a little bit what it is. What do we do in that time? Like, I know that can feel a little funky to some people. And also, does it have to be, kind of three questions, does it have to be a specific format or setup as we approach Sabbath?
Yeah. Yeah, so ideally, you know, Sabbath, borrowing kind of the language and work from Pete Scazzaro, he talks about Sabbath with like really four key components. First, you have the stopping, the resting, delighting, and then worship or play, you know. Sabbath, that first one being stop, literally comes from the word Sabbath. Like Shabbat means to stop, right? So it's this idea that you and I stop doing the work that we get paid to do for a period of time. We see it historically practiced for an entire 24-hour period of time. For some people today in a modern world, that might feel like an impossible, request. So like find a period of time, 12 hours, 7 hours, whatever it is. But you stop doing what you get paid to do. And then secondly, you rest. So you like physically allow your body to catch up to everything else that's going on in your life. Like, so go slow. And this can look, there's a lot of freedom as to how this can look, right? You find things that are restful for you. And then there's an aspect of delighting. And so we're actually like enjoying the fruit of our labors, enjoying the gift and the life that God has given to us. And so you have fun. Like you do things that are like, just put a smile on your face, whether it's, cooking a good meal, taking a great walk, going somewhere, the beach, the park, whatever it is, hanging out with friends that like fill you up and don't drain you, you know? And then there's a really critical aspect, that fourthly, of worship. So there's a genuine sense of intentional time and intimacy with God, right? So Sabbath at its core is about drawing our souls closer to be with God. Which I, use the phrase, this is like a holy rest day or whatever. Because I do think we see regular attempts in our world today, and more people talking about how do we fight against kind of the hustle we live in now. And so Sabbath at its core from the scriptures is a way for our souls to be intimate with God. And so that's why that last component of worship is really, really critical. Now, historically, Christians Sabbath on Sunday as a way to identify themselves with the day that Jesus rose from the dead, right? So we gathered and worshiped on that particular day. For people like you and me who work for a church and sometimes find ourselves worshiping in the very space that we work in, it's a bit of a different dance, right? So that's why we kind of, at least for my family and I, think of like Friday night and into Saturday as like a time of rest for us, you know, because Sunday is often a work day for us.
Right.
But yeah, those could be kind of the four, building blocks, if you will, for how you understand a Sabbath practice. So
Yeah, I like the idea of it being a holy day, because that's kind of correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that how we get the word holiday? It's like holy days, days of remembrance and break and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it was a day that's meant to be separate, set apart, sacred. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of thinking through it that way. But like you acknowledged, sometimes a 24-hour period is a lot harder for us.
Too much.
Culturally, I can't get on Instagram without seeing at least 1 or 2 videos about this entrepreneur or this new side hustle. And as someone that has tried to do a side hustle, I've realized that's a very hard task to do when you already have a job on top of that. So how do we, as a culture, whether believer or not, start to reframe our minds around this kind of need or desire to work as much as we can, to make as much money as we can, ultimately to get the rest and vacations that we see other people having? How do you advise we best approach that?
Man, yeah, that's a good question. I feel like that's kind of like honestly at the heart of the problem we see in our modern world today with the kind of culture of hurry and hustling, having side jobs, right? Being exposed through social media to everyone else's life and their success, the ways they're spending their summertime. Like it leads you to feel like these forces are coming against me, making it almost impossible to rest and go slow, you know? And so that's why some have kind of talked about, I think of Rich Veriotis, he talks about this in his writings, that Sabbath is an act of resistance against the forces that would make us just try to keep going and going and going, you know, and view ourselves as people who just produce and achieve and accomplish stuff. And so I think, you got to get to some point where you're realizing, wow, what I'm trying to intentionally practice is an active resistance towards the forces and the powers of this world that would want me to just be producing all the time rather than, you know, resting and finding myself and finding an identity that's deeper than just the things that I can output and do or accomplish, you know. And so I think that's a real important place that we have to begin, you know. What was the second part of your question too that you had phrased?
I mean, I like thinking through this idea and just acknowledging the hustle and work culture that we're in. I can recognize that there's honestly a lot of people that might need to work 2 jobs or have something on the side to be able to make the ends meet. Some of that is not strictly just a choice to make more money. Some of it is to just survive. So I kind of thinking through like, how do we best approach that of like the balance between needing to care for ourselves, provide for our families and those kinds of things, while also not burning ourselves out and still making room for rest and just moments of slowing down.
That's right. Yeah. So resistance, I'm obviously acknowledging that what you're trying to do is an act of resistance. So there will be pushback. It will not be easy. But then secondly, you also need to begin to embrace like what are my limitations and where have I been over functioning in my life? Yeah. Right. So we don't only over function in our work by saying yes to a lot of things and yes to a lot of people. We over function in our relationships. So we try to be too much for too many people. We over function with our activities, right? Especially when it's summer. Like we have 2.5 months to cram everything in to change our lives forever. Like, so we over function. And so embracing limitations is a way for you to honestly reflect on where in my life am I not practicing and receiving the gift of limitations that God, I think, built into the hardware of creation, you know, and into the rhythm of how the world works, right? So even when he tells Adam and Eve, this one tree, don't eat from it, there's a limitation right there, right? So I think human beings are designed and we flourish best when we actually embrace our limits. And so if you can understand, yes, there's a resistance. Secondly, where are the limitations that you have just like refused to acknowledge and accept? And then I think from there you'll begin to find a way out that allows you to like go for 12 hours or go for 24 hours where you are. Yeah, you're inactive, and like that's a good thing, you know. And you know, what's the phrase, like couch rotting or like bed rotting? Right? Like some people.
I mean, I'm old, so I always just refer to it as couch potato.
Yeah, couch potato. Like all those things, I think, are important indicators and like very clear symptoms in our culture today that people are longing for something at a soul level that we believe the scriptures say Sabbath can provide and do for you. You know. Right. So, and I love seeing TikToks where everyone's like, I said no to all these people so I can just literally do nothing at home. You know, like there's something to that. You don't have to be, you're not a bad person necessarily for doing that, you know? Now, if you're going back on what you've said yes to, like that's a different kind of conversation to have. But there is something to like withdrawing and being at peace with that for the sake of your own life and soul, you know?
Yeah.
So
I like in our notes, you had put down this idea that Sabbath and rest was built into creation. In the very in Genesis, first book of the Bible, we see at the end of all his creation, God takes a Sabbath and rests and enjoys the beauty of his creation. So it's almost less a just like good idea for your life, but also like built into who you are. You know, as people, we are designed to have moments of rest and I believe resting in the image of God, but you know, on top of that, just taking times away from our work and away from the things that require so much of us.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, in the same way that you can't like safely like glide your hand across like grains of wood and going in the opposite direction without like catching a few splinters.
Right.
You can't do that when it comes to breaking the law of the Sabbath. Like you can't safely break the law of gravity. So what makes us think that we can break the law of the Sabbath? Like it's built into creation. And so we need to become the kinds of people who I think appreciate and practice and honor the way that God has built this rhythm in, you know? So we're made to be restful people. And because it was the seventh day, here's what's kind of crazy. Sabbath is day 7. Adam and Eve created day 6, which means their first day of human existence was a day of rest. So they didn't work in order to get to rest.
Right.
They worked from a place of rest. And so once we like make that paradigm shift, again, going back to it as a gift, not something we've earned, it helps you understand that this is actually an act of love from God.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not about, did you work hard enough this week or have you proved yourself this week in order to get a time of rest? But no, you're meant to find out who you truly are in rest first and foremost, and then to like live from that place, you know. And that needs to become a fundamental shift, I think, for a lot of us. You know, where it's not something we just believe, but we actually put it into practice with kind of how we function on a week-to-week basis.
Do you think that thought kind of comes from like this? Because I definitely feel that I need to prove that I've done enough things in a week to be able to rest.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of comes from just capitalistic kind of cultures of like you got to work and work and work to get to this next stage? Where do you think we kind of picked that up in society?
Gosh, yeah, Industrial Revolution, consumerism in the Western world, like, all of those things like have baked this idea into our thinking, into our psychology that like we have to prove ourselves, right? And there's a lot of ways and environments like where that's the case. Like you want to get into a college, you got to prove yourself with an application,
right?
GPA, right? You want to get a job, you got to prove yourself with a resume and interview, right? All those things. But that's not how everything in our life works.
Right.
There's got to be aspects to us understanding who we are where we don't have to prove ourselves. You know, which I think it allows that the scriptures claims to be all the more, I think, provocative and life-giving, where you have a God who loves you without the need for you to prove who you are. I think it's just astounding, you know. And so, yeah, I think that's just super critical because it does feel so countercultural to the way that we function in everyday life, you know. So, yeah, that's a real thing. That's a real thing.
Definitely. That also, I mean, that leads me to think through this idea of like rest is important, but also like I think our innate desire for some of these things, whether it be a vacation, maybe a few extra bucks to go shopping and do some of that stuff like that, that isn't always necessarily, how did I write down this question? But that isn't always necessarily like a bad thing. And I think I've seen some good-hearted Christians kind of turn those things into negative things because it's like, oh, you're sacrificing your rest for this vacation. So I think I'm kind of thinking, like, is it wrong to desire things or activities in our summer break, or the ability to go on these bigger vacations, or even to have spaces to kind of splurge a little bit? Is it wrong for those things? And how do we balance Sabbath versus overconsumption, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong at all to desire like time away, whether it be a vacation, you know, or just a month at home, or whatever you're able to do, you know. The challenge is when you put a lot of expectations on that 1 week down to San Diego, you know, and what you think it's actually going to do for your soul. If you haven't learned to practice this on a regular basis, right, where you have a weekly Sabbath or even a daily moment where you're able to just go slow and give yourself some time to allow your soul to catch up to the body, you know, or vice versa. So like those things have to be happening, I think, on a regular basis for us to step into a week of vacation or time away or a great, trip around the world and feel like, oh, we got something out of that, because oftentimes we step into the summer season with very high expectations of what we think will happen during that time, what will happen to us, the things we'll do. And then we get like this relaxation-induced anxiety around the fact that while I'm resting or while I'm trying to relax, I'm not relaxed, which I was just reading about in an article earlier today, and I'm like, man, that's actually that's so true, and that happens to so many of us.
I'll say let's talk about that one.
Yeah.
For me personally, like I said, 1-year-old, a lot of my time is not my time right now. So generally, if I'm sitting on the couch playing chess or watching TikTok or trying to find the next thing to watch on Disney Plus, I start to get a little anxious of like, oh, I had 3, 4, 5 other things I said I wanted to get done this week in my free time. Now I feel bad for just sitting, watching TV with my wife or sitting and taking a moment to breathe. What were some of the things you were reading as that cultural phenomenon comes on, where we have anxiety around being restful?
Yeah, trying to relax and you're getting anxiety from relaxing. Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably too many reasons as to what's at the root of that to try to diagnose it for every single person. But I would imagine at some level, we have to accept the fact that there will always be something else to do. So, like, I love to do the dishes at my house, and I have to regularly tell myself.
That's rare. I hate doing the dishes.
I find it, strangely, I enjoy that space.
To me, hell is repeatedly doing the dishes. And as soon as I'm done, someone sets another plate down. Yeah. That is what hell is like.
I feel that. Kids, man. But yeah, I think one thing I have to tell myself all the time, there will be another dish. There will always be another dish. There will always be another email. There will always be another house chore. There will always be another to-do item, on the honey to-do list. There will always be another thing to fix at the house. Like, that won't ever end. And so you have to accept the endless cycle that things will never be, like, perfect, right? And you can still actually find peace in the midst of some of that. Yeah. So that you don't stress yourself out while you're just trying to relax on the couch and catch a break, So, and then there is another component to God. I want to steward well the time that I have in the time that you've allotted for me to kind of work and be productive around the house or at the workplace or in my relationships, And so, yeah, there's kind of like two aspects to it. One, there will always be another thing to do. But secondly, there is an issue of stewardship that maybe like we can address in our lives, So, but yeah,
that's good stuff.
Hopefully,
yeah. We'll see as this episode rolls out. So let's kind of talk about summer, just in general. It's a natural kind of break in the year. I think as people, we kind of get like 2 big breaks. We get summer break. And then basically all of December through the first week of January feels like a break to most people. Yeah. I'm not getting much work done in December. But, and that's also a lot of people. So I feel like we kind of get those 2 big blocks of time. In your perspective or kind of thought, how do we start reclaiming some of these times where it's like summer rolls around and it's very easy to check out and just fill with the fun things that we didn't get to do from February through May? How do we embrace these times and kind of approach it a little bit differently?
Yeah. I love that you use that phrase, check out. I was just reading this article, the one I referenced a moment ago, by a doctor on this website, and she was saying, the article was titled The Myth of a Carefree Summer. And she talked about the reality of the kinds of stress that comes during summer, specifically because your schedules have changed, and so like nothing feels like how it normally does. School is out. Right, and then you have expectations on yourself for what you're going to do for the next 10 weeks or 3 months, whatever time you have. And then she also points out that relaxation-induced anxiety that comes, like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to rest, but this doesn't feel restful, So I think a few things have to happen. Number one, I would say we've kind of swapped out Sabbath as God's intended it for it to be for schedule, where we tried to master and control at a God level our lives too much. So I don't need to rest, I just need to schedule well. Right. I don't know if that's the case. Yeah. Right? And then I think we also have swapped out true biblical rest for just like fun recreation. And what I mean by that is I think what we're lacking there is a real encounter with God. Right. A moment ago you said the word like check out, and I think that's so good. I love to check out for summertime, And often the pathway of just escapism feels great for a while, and then it just doesn't seem to satisfy.
Yeah.
Which is why I think instead of thinking of recreation as a form of escapism, think of summer as a time to rest where you can encounter God and learn to be with him through small acts, right? Whether it's through scripture, prayer, walking with your friends, on the beach somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like what you need to think about summer is not like this is a time to escape. This also is a time to encounter God. Like this is a time for your soul to meet the Maker in a way that doesn't, end your life, meet him like that, but meeting him in a way where his voice like lifts you up and gives you life again and redefines your purpose and reminds you of who you are and does all of those wonderful, beautiful things spiritually that actually give you life again and refresh you, Because, escapism is like we all love a good escapist moment, but it's so fleeting, And so if we can imagine summer as less about escapism and more about encounter and less about recreation, more about rest, I think we'll find ourselves, doing the summer activities, but having a different kind of lens to look at them and like a different kind of heart posture in the midst of us, like participating in them, know? And so, and that can happen, honestly, that can happen going to a theme park, that can happen on a great road trip to a national park, that can happen, spending the weekend with your friends that you haven't seen all year, like that can happen in really ordinary ways that we all kind of find to do during the summertime, you know? It's just a matter of approaching it as like, God, this is a gift from you. I get to be with people I haven't seen in a long time. Help me not to escape my problems, myself, but help me just to actually encounter you through these people and through this time that we get to have at the lake or wherever we're at this time, Like I think that's maybe a helpful shift to make so to where we don't kind of, continue to buy into this, as this article was talking about, the myth of the carefree summer, because there's nothing carefree about this world. Like, have you been outside? It's crazy. There's nothing carefree about this world right now.
Especially if you're doing summer in Riverside. Yeah. And ain't no carefree in this 105 weather.
Like the way I'm running my AC right now, my goodness, that utility bill is going to be crazy.
That was actually going to be one of my follow-up questions for you. In your life, how do you embrace rest in the recreation? Because like you said, your kids are playing soccer. They're good at soccer, so it's something they want to keep doing. They find a lot of joy in it. But naturally, that makes life for you and Ashley a little bit busier as you got to get to a few different places. How do you and your family embrace rest in the midst of recreation and some of the just more communal kind of aspects?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does kind of start with a heart posture that says, God, thank you for this gift. This is great. My son loves to play sports. Thanks. I get to be a part of it and watch it, Whether he turns into, like, Messi or he's just messing around. I don't know.
Right.
But, like, it's a gift, and so thank you for it, know. And then, like, to maybe ask him, how are you at work in some of the relationships that are happening around here? Like, so that I can engage with new people that I would not have met had my son not played on this soccer team and had another game at this one field, that costs X amount of money to park my car at, or whatever the case is. Like, so I think just trying to approach that day with somewhat of a different attitude, But then also understanding, like, when it's time to say no, like, and not do that one thing, So, like, I guess what it's doing for me, McKay, it's helping me to be more thoughtful with my time away from work. Like, just thoughtful, you know? I feel like that's the stage I'm in right now, is I'm learning to be thoughtful, asking God's Spirit to help me think about what would be good to do next, that pleases you, that actually gives me some rest in the midst of a lot of things that we've, committed to, And then I think in that thoughtfulness comes the ability and the discernment to say, okay, no to this, we can't do this, can't do that, and like that's okay,
right?
Like that really is okay, So.
Yeah, and you and I have had the conversations before of this kind of leads you, that thoughtfulness leads you into more intentional relationships, more intentional time with people. Like there's some neighbors of ours, literally half a mile away, like very quick walk to our house, and we still only really get to spend quality time with them maybe 4 or 5 times out of the year, just because of the busyness of the schedule. But I think of them as like a good opportunity to step into this rest because our time together is intentional. we kind of plan around it, and we know, hey, this is going to be a time to eat, to relax, not have too much of a schedule, but just enjoy being in the presence of a good friendship.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what Sabbath kind of ushers us into, is like a lot of the ways today you experience God is through prayer and reading, yes, but also through the relationships we have and
Yes.
the communities that we spend our time in.
Yeah.
And my time at church and with my community group has also helped influence, like, okay, as I'm around other people that maybe are not in these church spaces, that rest that I can bring into those spaces
I love
can
that.
often like speak volumes to the gospel more than maybe what they see on Instagram or something like that, you know?
100%.
Just that idea of like, oh,
Yeah.
your life is different. Why is your life different compared
Mm-hmm.
to this person that's at the Fortune 500 just working as hard as they can?
Mm-hmm.
Which again, work is also a gift.
Yeah.
You know, because of sin, it became painful, but like the work that we think and the things that we do can be worship as well. But that time of rest is just so valuable and can speak wonders to the relationships around us. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think this is all very thought-provoking stuff as we approach summer. What are a few things you would give our church, our listeners, as they start to wrap their minds around starting to Sabbath or even just carve out periods of rest in their week?
Yeah, I would maybe start with choosing a day. Like, find a day right now in your schedule. If you're single, practice it with some friends. You know, if you're married, practice it obviously with your spouse and your family. But choose a day that can work for the community that you immediately live with and live around, and find some simple things to do in that day that allow you to feel rested, that allow you to intentionally have time with God, where intimacy is rich and your soul feels his loving gaze, you know, and his acceptance in Christ Jesus for you. And then also fill that day with something really fun to do, you know, and with no shame or guilt, enjoy the heck out of it. Like, just give yourself to it, you know. And I think not once, but over time, slowly, you'll start to notice the gift and the life that's found in resting, in the practice of rest, right? But it does start with intentionally choosing a day and a time. As we mentioned earlier, sometimes 24 is not possible for some. So maybe you do half the day, right? Like if Saturday is a super busy day, or Sunday you got a lot of stuff, you got family responsibilities, you're visiting family in the hospital, right? You got all kinds of things that you're having to deal with. Maybe it is just half a day that you dedicate and you go slow and you're very inactive. Maybe you choose a day and you put all your technology away, you know, and you just give yourself to the present moment and what you're doing there. I think could also be helpful. So as often as Scripture talks about the way that Jesus practiced Sabbath, there's also a lot of freedom there too. You know? Like this, like I said earlier, this can become a very legalistic thing. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be liberating, not legalistic. You know, so it's hopefully a way to set you free. And there's a lot of ways that can happen. And so, be creative as to what you choose to do during that day. You know, but definitely start somewhere. So
yeah. And I love how you shared the idea. It's a time to not produce what we do for our daily bread, if you want to keep using the Christianese kind of language. But I also I don't practice Sabbath all the time. I'm trying to build that practice back up. But I have found some of the things I do, like writing poetry or, you know, music and stuff like that. This time of Sabbath has helped break the need to make something or produce something for the sake of getting likes out of it or for the sake of approval. So sure, your Sabbath might not be sitting and meditating all the time. Like if you get true rest out of film and enjoying good film like that, then there's freedom in that being your Sabbath, as long as we're not using it to escape, but to find beauty in God's creation and the world that he's created. I think, at least for me, that was the struggle with some of the Sabbath and developing that as a practice, as I had this frame of thought of it had to be this, this, and this. Otherwise, it is not truly rest. And it's like, well, actually, I get a lot of rest out of DJing and finding new songs to mix and practicing these scratches. So, like, that is a moment that I can use my talents to create. And God enjoys that, you know? It doesn't necessarily have to be just Chris Tomlin for 12 hours as you're watching, you know, VeggieTales or something. Like, there's space and room to worship God in ways that are unique and fulfilling to you as well. So,
yeah, and I think it's important you mention that creativity, because it does remind us too that we find the loving presence of God in all of those various spaces, right? So a real simple thing I've done, I mentioned this in messages in the past before, like I'll light candles at the house going into Friday evening as a reminder to me that God's presence is here.
Yeah.
In the same way that God's presence is with you as you go for a walk or go out somewhere, hang out with friends, you know, like his loving presence is with us and goes with us. And so the Sabbath practice is a way for us to remember that in whatever we find ourselves doing as a fun, enjoyable activity. You know, that's life-giving. So, yeah, I think that's super, super critical, is learning to discover his loving presence wherever you're at, you know, in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
It does something for you, man. It really does. So.
Yeah, definitely.
You won't levitate right away, you know, and you won't have zero anxiety right away.
Right.
But like any other thing that you try and that you practice, like you give yourself to it over time, and it will begin to show its fruit over time, you know. So it's a slow, good work, and I think it's worth doing, because the current culture we find ourselves in, I think, is lacking in trying to provide human beings an authentic way to rest, you know.
Yeah.
So I think we're coming towards the end of like the busyness as like a badge of honor. I think we're done with that. I think there's enough Americans and enough smart people around the world who see like we just can't live like that. You know? The Elon Musk 100-hour a day or 100-hour work week like badge of honor. Like I think we're done with that. You know, I'd rather take Jesus sleeping on the boat in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
Like I like that kind of rest. You know, because I have a God who is over the storm, protecting us, protecting me. You know, so I can release. I can let go.
Yeah. I think people would honestly, if Jesus were in California in 2025, I think people would be surprised at how slowly he moved.
Oh my
and
gosh,
interacted with people.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude, that's a great point. I don't think we'd recognize him.
Right.
I don't even know we'd notice him on the street
Yeah.
because he would seem insignificant, moving too slow. He'd be in your way,
Yeah.
you know, on your way to your fourth coffee shop stop because,
Right.
you know, whatever you're doing. Like, yeah, that's such a great point. We probably would miss him because of our speed. You know.
And granted, like historically, they had to walk everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, there's no cars to get you from Jerusalem to Capernaum very quickly. But
No Uber.
Yeah, no Uber. But I think there's a lot to look at. Jesus's willingness to walk with his disciples. And I mean, I've talked to my coworkers and youth leads and all this kind of stuff of like how many great conversations around faith take place when you're just willing to slow down and kind of embrace rest and some of the mundane parts of life to incorporate those. So yeah. Little self-plug here. I know this is a little bit out of left field, but if you are wanting to learn how to embrace these daily practices and rhythms, Sabbath being one of them, our Sandals Church app just recently got redesigned to help embrace that.
Check it out.
Download the new app or update your app now. You'll get this great new home feed that has 3 practices for each day: read, reflect, and pray. I won't fully dive into all of those. They're a little self-explanatory, but we have helped create some of this content, some of this stuff to help you guys experience Jesus every day and in those daily rhythms. I think once a week we have an extra bubble around Sabbath that talks about how to embrace some of that and those things. So Sandals Church app is a great place to start building these into your own lives. And of course, we want to hear about that too. So if you're listening to this on podcast, if your platform has an option to leave a comment, leave us a comment. Let us know how you're embracing Sabbath this year. If you're watching this on YouTube, same place, drop us a comment.
Yeah,
or you can email us. Do we still use online at sandalschurch.com?
Yes, we do.
I feel like that's
Find us there, yeah.
Email us at online at sandalschurch.com. We would love to hear your stories. And even if you're having a harder time embracing this, we would love to help walk you through that and give you some tangible steps and steps in that. Do you have any other final words, Bishop Pastor Fredo?
Bishop Pastor, I just think of the call out of Hebrews 4, where it says, today's the day of salvation. If you would hear his voice, would you come and enter his rest? Like there is still time to enter his rest. Of course, that is speaking to the salvation we find in Jesus, but also one of the primary ways that we experience that salvation by practicing what we believe in resting, you know. It's amazing to me how many Christians say, I rest in Jesus, my identity's in him, but they actually don't practice Sabbath. Like, how is that, not happening in your life? We want to practice our convictions, you know? It's not just that we believe the right theology, but that we actually embody it in a loving way. And I think Sabbath is a great way to do that. And so that Hebrews 4 passage just comes to mind, like, enter his rest.
Yeah.
Would you enter his rest, And that's our prayer for all you guys, that you would enter the rest of Jesus. and experience it in your life. Yeah.
It's almost like it's theology and
There you go.
entering into rest.
Yeah.
Well, friends, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Theology and Show, talking theology and the various ways that we incorporate it. I got to figure out a better tagline for that. But theology and the way we incorporate this in our lives. If you're liking the show, the content we're producing, please like, subscribe, share with a friend that needs to hear it. All these things help our channel grow organically, and which means Fredo and I still get to eat. So
There you go.
every share gets a free meal.
Oh, no.
Grace and peace.
Peace out.